we have to introduce ourselves first and foremost. I'm Robin Morgan. I've spent 30 years in the Sunday Times, last 15 editing the Sunday Times magazine. I've recently retired from journalism. I'm going to moderate the debate tonight. I'm going to ask the fellow panelists to introduce themselves in a second. But I just want to throw out a few thoughts that may interest you. I don't buy Hello, and I don't read Heat. I'm not really interested in the stars' homes or their weddings or their diets. I don't care about Madonna or adopting a new orphan. And I don't really care that much about editors who sell their editorial integrity to get a star on the cover of their magazine or their newspaper. At the same time, I'm absolutely fascinated by Tiger Woods and how he kept 18 women happy for so long. Valentine's Day must have been a nightmare for him. I also recognize the value of Angelina Jolie traveling with a photojournalist to Darfur, and the fact that her presence keeps that issue in the news and before an audience that might not otherwise read about Darfur. And I am a sucker for an interview in a film star I'm interested in. Bill Nighy, and Anthony Hopkins, or a Christopher Walken, particularly Christopher Walken. So that's in a nutshell my dilemma, right? This is an age of celebrity. I think we're both cynics and we're also suckers for it. But I am concerned about one issue, and that is a celebrity is exercising more and more financial and legal muscle to control and manage their brands. They expect us to fork out our pounds and dollars to buy into their brand. How important is it that we are as informed about their private lives as their professional lives? And I raise one example. I love Mel Gibson movies. A lot of people do. But I want to be informed about his drunken tirade against women, against Jews, when he's arrested on a highway in Malibu. I want to be informed about his father's Holocaust denial, and I want him to be questioned by a journalist on those issues, so that I can make an informed decision about whether I ever want to see a Mel Gibson movie again. I'm going to ask my fellow panelists now to introduce themselves, and hopefully they will fire you with similar thoughts from their areas of interest.
Shall I start? Hello, my name's Sam Delaney. I'm the editor of Heat magazine. I have been for 6 months. Previous to that, I was a journalist and broadcaster for 12 years, writing for The Guardian mostly, and also for the NME and the Sunday Telegraph, and presenting on 5 Live. So I'm quite new to the old celebrity game, and it's a lot of fun, and has opened my eyes over the last 6 months to there is a strange dynamic, I think, and a dynamic that was sort of new to me between a new breed of publicist and journalist that had changed a lot since the last time I was full-time in an editorial office, which had been a few years beforehand, and the amount of power they wield, or at least the amount of power they think they wield, the new sort of publicists in the showbiz industry. So that's an issue that I suppose is interesting for me to discuss this evening.
Well, I'm Jane Bussman. I'm a comedy writer. I've done things like South Park and Brass Side, and then I spent 5 years in Hollywood sanitising the image of celebrities and making them sound a hell of a lot nicer than they were, and I'll reveal that at length later. But one thing I would talk about is my one foray into serious journalism of any kind was to try and do a piece about 25,000 kidnapped children in Uganda, and a peacemaker that was going out there, and it was spiked because there weren't enough celebrities in it. And I remember the editor saying to me, this editor of a broadsheet supplement, saying, you know, if only you could have got an Angelina Jolie quote. And the fact that Angelina Jolie wasn't there didn't matter one bit. You know, well, surely it's her right. And I ended up getting so frustrated, I turned it into a comedy show and a book. But that was literally the only way I would have run this piece, was if I'd had somebody who'd not Brad Pitt in it. But, that's me, Camilla.
I'm Camilla Wright. 10 years ago, I started a website and email magazine called Popbitch, which was about pop culture and celebrity, and really about the gap, as Robin was saying, between the public face of a celebrity and the private reality, or what went on in behind the scenes of the pop culture and celebrity world. So what happened? What happens in the background that you don't know about, I think, is what we've been really covering for the last 10 years. Publicists, yeah, I get the whole issues with that, but I think the things we look at now may be a little different in that a lot of things we face are the legal side of celebrities, and increasingly the use of the super injunction, the publicity, the injunction to stop anybody talking anything about their private lives at all. I spend a lot of time and money in the high courts trying to prove that we can actually say things a little bit at least about people's private lives. However, one thing I'm interested in talking about maybe is a positive thing about celebrities. There's a huge amount of media now, websites, magazines, everything devoted to telling you about the private lives of people who are quite happy to be in the media and happy to tell you all about their lives. Mainly they're famous for being famous. I'm interested to know if this is something that adds to the joy of the world. Do we actually want to sit down and read about other people's lives in this way? Because obviously some people do. And why is it maybe that these people, the nobodies, that I was in a reality show once and now I'm going to have my operation live on the internet, why is it this has become such a big thing in our society?
I'm Sharon Hatz. I'm the celebrity liaison at the National Autistic Society, and slightly differently to everyone here really, my area of interest is how charities can use celebrities to really get across messages that might be quite complex and quite difficult to understand, and particularly from my perspective, autism is a very complicated disorder and the media always want to put it in a very neat little box, and actually working with celebrities to tell personal stories can actually make a condition like autism much more real for people. So it's similar to the sort of positive side of things really, and how celebrities can kind of add value working with brands and charity brands as well.
So, cynic or sucker, or both? Any questions for any of the panellists? I've got a load. Absolutely nobody here. Let's throw it out then. Who?
There's one.
Who can? Good. Where?
I'd like to know about your work sanitizing celebrities' images. Could you tell us?
Pick a celebrity.
I think you're talking about what, photoshopping in terms of the photographs, or you're talking about the words as well?
I'm talking about sanitizing their public behavior so that
Right,
it's
well,
palatable.
I'll read one short behind-the-scenes interview, and it makes me look a lot worse than him, so I'm taking a huge risk by reading this out. But this was my day with Ashton Kutcher, who is an actor, better known today as the bloke who took over from Bruce Willis on Demi Moore. I had asked him about religion. It's the rule of celebrities, you never ask them about religion, that they might have an opinion. But I'd run out of things I wanted to ask him, which happened quite a lot. He basically started giving me this enormous bollocking because I believe in Charles Darwin instead of Jesus. But I knew as a celebrity journalist, my job to keep him happy, so I didn't ruin his day by introducing him to the concept of science. Instead, I just said, I've got no problem with religion. Ashton, I guess I just don't like priests. This was his reply. I've met some really great priests. 2. But I've only met 4 priests. No, 3 priests. No, 4 priests. And one of them I didn't really know. But 2 of them were really great people. No, I've met 4 priests. I've met 5 priests, and 3 of them were great. Now, I changed the subject at this point to child abuse to try and lighten the mood. It didn't work. One of them still sends me a birthday card, and I haven't seen him in 12 years. He said, I'll leave it open to your own judgment, but I think you need to think about your thinking a little bit more. Now, this is what I wrote. Ashton really is the coolest person in America. I mean, I could talk about, being sent to interview Britney Spears, writing 5 pages without ever having met her twice. I could talk about endless celebrities I'm supposed to have met. I have no idea what these people look like, because most celebrity interviews don't take place. You get 15 minutes on a phone, because that's the only way the publicist can control you saying what they actually look like. You saying, are they barking mad and aggressive? It's much easier if you just don't meet the journalist.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they'll do anything.
The question is, why did you sanitize?
Well, I sanitize it because I had nothing to live for.
Well, maybe you sanitize it for a readership who doesn't want to know that he's got no stupidity. But
and also, I figured at the end of the day, he's harmless. It's Ashton Kutcher, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
He's not Mel Gibson.
That's not what you need.
Or so you say.
Oh, sorry.
Any other issues on this? Because the sanitisation is interesting. Be it, you know, Kate Winslet losing, you know, 30 pounds through Photoshop on a cover of a glossy.
I'm actually curious whether you were pushed to sanitize it and whether you could just not sell it if you were going to tell the real story. What was the pressure from the editors?
In the case of Ashton, it was for the face, so it was all it was just jolly. It was about sort of reinforcing his image as world's coolest person. When it started to get weird, it was when you'd sort of be told that you'd find yourself writing Nicole Richie looked amazing when she looked like she was, you know, made of desiccated coconut. And she's a lovely girl. You know. When you sort of would be really quite concerned for the mental well-being of Lindsay Lohan, but, you know, it was all about how she's stable and happier than ever before, because that is what sells. That's, you know, you play to their image. I mean, the only thing I really felt bad about was, you know, was saying that Nicole looked great when she, you know, that was no way for me to behave. But at the end of the day, it was just, it didn't really matter.
So if the journal or the magazine or the TV show or the radio show has made that pact with the devil, i.e. celebrity, that's why their readers buy them.
Absolutely.
That's what the commercial imperative behind the product. That's where you make that pact.
Yes, and also because the publicist would have blacklisted me if I'd said anything other than the set list of things you're allowed to say. I mean, I had a publicist go completely batshit at me because I put their client in a top 10 list without telling the publicist there'd be other people in the top 10 list. I had a strip torn off me. I was really upset. I went straight back to the editor and I said, look, we've got to have a top 10 with less numbers in it. It's mental out there. You have no idea what it's like.
So sanitization basically is a tool of any media that relies on celebrity for its success.
It's when you rely on access to celebrities.
Yeah.
That's why there's been such a growth of blogs and magazines which just take shots of things and say what they want about celebrities. Because as soon as you need access to celebrities, I'm sure you two know that a publicist or an agent or a management team might have 30 celebrities, and if you're nasty to one of them, that means the other 29 you never get to write about. And if that's your newspaper or magazine, that's a hell of a lot of films or music a year. You can't, and then they'll tell their friends, and then you can't write about their celebrities either. So it's like, you know.
It's a really important distinction. It's not about whether or not you depend on celebrities. Heat depends on celebrities, but what it doesn't depend on is access to celebrities. So the reverse is true. In our case, you know, an endorsed story is far less commercially successful, you know, generally speaking. So we don't need to run interviews, and then there are other magazines in our market like OK, which are the antithesis of us in as much as they are all about a sanitised presentation of the celebrities they cover. We are all about the inside sort of grittier, gossipy story. We're very much about gossip, non-endorsed stuff, which makes it easier when you're having a row with a publicist on the phone, because you can walk away and you can tell them to F off. Not all the time, but, you know, 8 out of 10 times you can do that, and that's a very satisfying feeling.
But you're using celebrity as a platform for your journalistic tools in terms of entertainment and information.
Yeah, precisely, yeah.
Whereas you're not relying on them, because you can get the pictures of them and you can...
Absolutely.
So
there was you know, you can't take a photo of our celebrity anymore, and you go, well, great, because actually it's much more exciting to have a pap shot on the cover, because people feel they're getting something real and gritty, and we, as you know, similar to a lot of other kind of celebrity media outlets, have made a success out of showing celebrities as they really are. That's what people have a real hunger for. They don't want to see the kind of pristine version of celebrities.
So the answer to your question, I think, is in this part of the market there's a definition between those products, newspapers or websites or even TV shows that rely on that pact with the devil and celebrity to bring in their readership, their area of interest, their viewer. And then there's the other part of the market that uses celebrity as a canvas on which to put across their views and their interests. Is there anything else that you're interested in, for instance, in terms of sanitization? Because I mean, I look at the shelves and there's a different market. I mean, Condé Nast magazines, you know, I mean, that is from Vanity Fair to Tatler and GQ is all about sanitizing celebrity.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but I am interested in the super injunctions and how celebrities are getting their lawyers to sanitize their clients' lives.
Well, I think, as Sam said, that because magazines, newspapers, or even more on the internet, I think now, people are bypassing all the traditional control mechanisms and just writing what they want, even if it's not true in a lot of cases about celebrities, because you sort of can. You can kind of make things up and, you know, one way or the other, they can't really do anything about it. And therefore, it's this area in which I guess the power battle is being fought. So it's at the moment, it's like, can paparazzi take photographs of you? Where can they? What bits are private, which aren't? What areas of your life can be said to be out of the public eye? And that's where all the that's where the privacy things are going on at the moment. And it's a constant battle. And it went quite a long way towards the celebrities, in that with the Max Mosley case, it basically said that we have no right to know anything unless they want to tell us, essentially. And with them, Sienna Miller won some battles with paparazzi, saying that, you know, if she's on holiday, just because she's not choosing to sell her photographs at that time, she's not going to be photographed, therefore all celebrities don't have to be photographed. So it's in that area where there's a huge battle going on. Nobody quite knows where it's going to go. And the John Terry case brought it back a little bit, because the judge there said, hang on a minute, this guy is selling his private life whenever he wants to, and at this moment this is pertinent to this case. Papers should be able to say what's going on.
There's an important fact as well, which is that there's a new breed of London lawyer now. Shillings is a law firm that epitomizes this, where if you're Sharon Stone or anyone else, and you don't want to risk spending tens or even hundreds of thousands of pounds taking on the media, you go to Shillings. And Shillings will take on the case on the contingency fee. We win, we take half the winnings. And a lot of famous people are using Shillings to try and bully the press into silence, on the grounds that Shillings are going to invest an awful lot of their lawyers' time fighting that case on behalf of celebrity, because they're going to take a cut of anything they win. And too often newspapers and magazines in Britain are bending over and taking it from Shillings and from the law. It is important also, because this impacts on the web, that the law is different in different countries. TMZ in America can get away with, I mean, TMZ is the new tabloid revelatory website. It's absolutely staggering. Most news organizations report what's on TMZ, like Michael Jackson's death. In France, I wrote a book in 1985 about the French blowing up Rainbow Warrior, the Greenpeace, with huge investigation, many months exposing that. And I discovered that one of the French Secret Service agents, a bomber, one of the bombers, who murdered a Greenpeace photographer, owned a house, and I described the house and the garden and the contents of that house. And he successfully sued me for 78,000 francs in France for invasion of his privacy. Where does the law sit in Italy, where it's even more draconian? For instance, in Italy, you can't write about child abuse in the Catholic Church, because the Italian judicial system and political system there's a law. It has a pact with the Vatican that basically offers Catholic priests immunity from prosecution, etc., etc. So the law differs everywhere, and the web is homogenizing it. But the super injunction, I think I'm right in saying, is that an awful lot of Hollywood stars are now coming to Britain. In America, they're protected by the Freedom of Information Act. Journalists are protected by that, and by the Fifth Amendment, the First Amendment. And over here, the Hollywood stars are coming to London and employing law firms like Shillings and using draconian British libel laws to sue newspapers. Anybody been sued recently?
No, but I have got a massive insurance policy. It's quite,
Any examples of where anything that's really upset you about sanitisation? Anything you've seen recently that made you angry?
Well, the fact that we don't have a privacy law, and yet people are relying on coming to England to file their lawsuits.
Yeah.
Well, we sort of do have a privacy law.
We do have a...
We don't formally, we have an informal.
Absolutely.
We have an informal one, but it kind of acts as a formal one. And libel is not really an issue for them at the moment, celebrities, because you have to sue for libel after it's been printed, whereas privacy you can get before it goes out and stop you from writing it. So
let's throw it open. How private should their lives be?
Hi, I'm Susie Brown. I work at the National Autistic Society with Sharon, and I'm head of PR there. I was interested to know about what the panel thought about the Jade Goody effect, and linking into what you just said about sanitisation, how that moved from the press being regularly pulling her to pieces and making comments about her at the start when she became famous, then moving into the sanitisation later into her life, and ultimately what is now known as the Jade Goody effect, about the impact that she had on things like smear tests for women.
Anyone? I've got views on this.
Go.
I've got views on Jade Goody, and I thought it was very interesting when she appeared in the national spotlight. I was completely disinterested in her and what was happening on, I think it was Big Brother, wasn't it? Until the Sun newspaper decided that she was public enemy #1 and became so abusive towards her because she was not attractive, because she was overweight, because she wasn't, let's face it, that intelligent. And it became almost outrageous that it was open season on Jade Goody in the early days. But Jade Goody had something that the public was interested in the way that maybe Jordan has something that the public are interested in. My interest in Jade Goody as a magazine editor came with her death. Why, for me, it was interesting. What was it about her that had made her appeal so much to the public consciousness? But more interestingly, how the National Health Service had let her down. Because Jade Goody should not be dead today. That made it a Sunday Times magazine cover story for me to investigate how the National Health Service had let her down and whether it was an issue for women in general.
I think the press, particularly the tabloid press, can be generally misogynist and classist, and she was caught up in that. The coverage of her death worried and worries me now, in that if you can, as a famous person, if you can sell every aspect of your life, including your death, for money, then it's open season on everybody else. Where does the privacy line lie? If other people don't want to go that far, how do we know? How do we work out who wants to be covered constantly, who doesn't? So enabling her to, I mean, for all good reasons, making money for her children, put her life out there so much that we know so much about it, might have some bad effects in the long run. But you were saying about the Jade Goody effect. There was something in the paper today suggesting that a year after her death, cervical screening rates were down to lower levels than they were when she died. So is there a Jade Goody effect? And if that's true, that's quite sad.
Can we not just get someone off a reality show who's failed to go on Celebrity Big Brother just to have a new complaint every year so that people can go for various screenings? If you've got a hermaphrodite, they could get all kinds of cancer and to become a walking leaflet. But isn't that what EastEnders and the Archers were for? You know, so every week, you know, you should be planting your turnips now. They're all educational. I think sickle cell anemia was a plot line for about 4 years, wasn't it? Yeah. But I just remembered something else about celebrities wielding power. So I take this away from the Jade Goody effect. When I worked on South Park, there was a huge furore because they'd done this very funny episode about Tom Cruise accidentally getting caught in a clothing receptacle, and it was called Trapped in the Closet. And he found this vaguely offensive. And he said if Comedy Central, a subsidiary of Viacom, were to repeat this episode, it was just possible that he would somehow refuse to do publicity for Mission Impossible 3. This was such a hoo-ha that it looked like it was going to happen. I can't remember, and I'm not sure if there's any broadcast or not, how it panned out, but we were absolutely shitting ourselves that Tom Cruise would wield his publicity might to stop us showing a cartoon. Yeah. And this is what we're at. In the end, what happened was Sumner Redstone, the boss of the bloke with the Weetabix head, who was boss of Viacom, just said, you know what, Tom Cruise, you're too sodding crazy. You were going to have to back down. But it took someone at this level, you know, to make any kind of control over.
But what he did manage to do was convince, through the Church of Scientology, for Chef.
There you go.
To quit the show for good.
But interestingly, Chef,
that's what he did.
It's true.
Then he died.
Isaac Hayes.
And then he died.
And so another thing about the power of celebrity publicists, particularly if your publicist happens to be a Scientologist. Chef made Isaac Hayes made this very angry letter about how South Park, you know, as a 40-year veteran of the civil rights movement, I, Isaac Hayes, take offence with their desperate criticism of the noble Church of Scientology. fantastic, very articulate letter written several days after he had a major stroke. So, you know, and I think shortly after he croaked, but it's like, you know, this is the level we're at, where almost all, you know, celebrity-related news stories are fabricated entirely by publicists on a retainer who are profiting from this.
And they need to keep their clients in the public eye, particularly when they've got a product to sell. One question, though, I think you're right about the smear testing dropping off, but the point is, for 3 months, there was a massive explosion in women going to the NHS and getting those tests. Particularly in the target age group, I think it was 18 to 30.
I had 3.
Where there was a real problem. So, if anything good came out of Jade Goody's death, it was that how many hundreds of thousands of young women who wouldn't have thought of getting a test did actually go and get it. And one other thing I would say about the Jade Goody effect is that the one thing I've learned about the media, now 40 years in the media, is that, you know what? If you're not buying into their story, the papers and the newspaper and the television, they won't bother with it. They'll drop it. The fact is, if the public are buying into what's being sold to them, they will keep it coming.
Do you think it's actually the public? You said that before. Isn't it? That's what the public's being fed by journalists and owners and Murdochs and all these shits are feeding the public all this crap. It doesn't mean the public wants it. It's what the public gets. The money isn't going into
I think my point is the public
reporting. But you're saying the public wants it. I don't think the public
I
wants
didn't
it.
say I never said the public wanted it. What I said is
they
the
keep
public
buying
buy
it,
into.
but they've got nothing else to buy because that's what the media is full
entirely
of.
Accurate.
Is this stuff, you know, that no one is actually interested. I mean, John Terry was completely built up by the media. No one, you know, the people, the football fans didn't really give a fuck. But, you know, it was actually the media. The media obviously creates the personality. So you can't really separate the
I'm always worried about people.
But you can't separate the personalities and the stars from the media. They're all in the same box with the newspaper owners on top.
Yes, you can. I could buy New Statesman, The Spectator, The Tribune, The Financial Times. There's a huge variety of publications out there to buy. There's a huge variety of television shows to watch. There's a huge variety of TV news bulletins to watch. I think they all service a different and fragmented market. You don't have to buy into it. It is inescapable, but there are people out there who do.
The papers and television, I can buy the Daily Star, and I will, in the Daily Star, when I read it, find every story that I will find in the Times. Yes, it'll be in between tips, but every story will be in the Times.
Is that a bad thing?
I don't know. Tips. I mean, I'm not.
Well, there was a very interesting study done by the Glasgow Media Studies Group about 20 years ago that said page 3 of The Sun was directly responsible for more than 500,000 people who were illiterate learning to read. I know, I'm not selling that. I'm just simply saying that's what that study showed. Interestingly, what the study said is that 500,000 people who were previously illiterate until they were encouraged to buy The Sun and learn to read, find out that between the tits and ass, there's one paragraph about Bosnia or Darfur, and they're learning something they wouldn't otherwise have known.
So
there's a deeper argument and issue.
So that's talking down to ordinary people, isn't it?
I'm not talking down.
You're talking down. You're saying that that's how they'll read this stuff if you have a bit of tits in.
No, I'm just saying there are people.
They would read the stuff in a different way if it was provided in a different way.
What I'm saying is there are people out there with views that are different to yours. But
hi. I don't know if this is on, actually, but I have good voice projection.
Yeah, I can
Project.
You need to use the mic because it's online.
I work at ActionAid, an international development agency, and I work in the PR/celebrity team. I used to work in arts, entertainment, celebrity PR with the likes of Mark Kowalski and Matthew Freud for about 12 years.
I bet you had more fun with Mark than you did with Matthew.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard a lot of stories, actually, Robin, but we won't go into it. I'm
You'll
just
swap
kidding,
them
I'm
later.
just kidding. Okay, so my question is, it's more to kind of pick the brains of actually Sam and Robin, because you're kind of journalists, retired, but still going. I'm in a predicament now because I work for a charity And I'm trying to get journalists to write about the stuff that we're doing, which is great work. And there's a lot of serious stuff going on out there, I'm sure you know, like poverty, violence against women, hunger, climate change, yada yada. But unless we have a celebrity going on a press trip with us, or a celebrity a celebrity endorsing something, we don't get any coverage unless there's like an emergency or a disaster. And so it's a really not a very good state of affairs to be in. And I just wanted to know, as journalists, like, what do we do? What do NGOs do to get publicity? Do we have to stick with celebrities to get?
Someone leaked to me a couple of emails that were knocking around during Haiti, and they were fairly jaw-dropping. One was from the Disasters Emergency Committee, and it said, words to the effect, I'm aware that some of you, it was to charities working in Haiti, and it said, I'm aware that some of you might have concerns about how this may look during an emergency, but have any of you got any photogenic ideas for the Sun and Leona, the winner of X Factor, Leona Lewis? And this was going out to charities who were ostensibly patching people together and sewing bits that had dropped off on. The other one was from a British medical charity, and it was a PR email, and it said, have we got possible ideas? Rope in famous amputee, brackets, not Heather Mills, brackets. That's going to take a while. Did you? Was it really?
I wrote that, and it was a joke.
Somebody took you seriously.
But if you look at a situation like Haiti, where you've got... Well, good, fantastic.
Of course it was. But,
Somebody didn't get it.
we didn't get it, we've got another. But that was a joke.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. But if you look at a situation where you've got, people are literally, downing tools to welcome an X Factor winner in a situation like that, surely we've reached a point at which we're in saturation and meltdown.
Sharon's probably better than all of us at.
I mean, we've kind of faced similar issues, really. For us, what we've sort of made an active decision to do is really kind of find a brand fit and not really just kind of pick, the latest Celebrity Big Brother winner or, the latest, band. It's somebody who really has, a link to what we're talking about and can really tell their story, because that's going to give you a 2-page feature in a magazine rather than a tiny news snippet in Telegraph. And that, to the charity, means more, but also to readers means a lot more as well. You're going to learn about issues that maybe are quite complex, like you're talking about Darfur. People didn't even know about that until Angelina Jolie and George Clooney got involved. So it's where there's a real brand fit. So it's maybe taking a bit more research and actually spending more time kind of looking at the right brands, and there is always going to be that risk.
Yeah, we recently did a campaign with the Teenage Cancer Trust. Obviously, in our magazine, it's self-evident that there has to be a celebrity angle on everything, because that's the only concept in the magazine. But the Teenage Cancer Trust, Nicola Roberts from Girls Aloud was campaigning about a piece of legislation that was trying to ban under 18-year-olds from using sunbeds, which is really prevalent, and we had loads of case studies of kind of like 12-year-olds in Liverpool addicted to sunbeds, going under 3 times a week. It was insane. And so we, it was an example of good kind of targeting by the Teenage Cancer Trust. They approached us. We already had a relationship with Nicola Roberts, who is bang on the sort of person that we would feature in the magazine anyway. And it was a case, and it was something that was really relevant to our readers. We are, our pages are filled with people with like appalling orangey tans. And a lot of our readers kind of probably aspire to a similar look. And so we thought, well, this is bang on relevant to our readers. It's got the perfect celebrity involved. It's a great cause, so we could make it entertaining. It had a great celebrity element. And we covered it for, I think, a few months. And we gave it a lot of editorial. We gave it a lot of online stuff. We turned up and campaigned. We organised huge campaigns down at Parliament. And and the legislation went through last week, but it was just it was a really smart tie-up. It was first and foremost, it was just well thought out by Teenage Cancer Trust to approach us with an appropriate idea. I
think that's the key as well, is getting the right media partner involved. I mean, we had Keith Duffy from Boyzone run the marathon for us last year, and we then found out a few weeks later that Jordan and Peter, when they were still together, were running the marathon. And obviously, as a press team, you're not going to get as much coverage as them. But we worked with This Morning, BBC Breakfast, Loose Women, and just being on those shows. This Morning had like the most number of emails they've had for a celebrity guest. Like they delivered them over, and they were this thick after like one day. Just people saying, "My God, this happened to me." You know, my brother. I think my brother might have autism. What can I do? And when he was on Loose Women, within a couple of hours of him appearing, his Just Giving page had like thousands and thousands of pounds just through people giving £2 or £3. And so it's not only having the right product, the right brand, the right charity, but the right using the media as well.
Going back to the questioner, I don't know if there is a way of getting in the media now without a celebrity add-on, and we're all talking about the cynical nature of the celebrity trying to sell themselves, the publicist, and why is everything about celebrity? But I don't think there is a way. I mean, maybe.
Well, I mean, when I was doing the thing about the Ugandan child kidnapper, in the end, I was trying to do a peacemaker who was going out there. They refused to run it because he wasn't famous. I lied. I said he was famous. I literally put together a piece, with all famous people he'd met, announced the fact that everyone in America was talking about this guy. He is now famous. Yeah. And this was to try and do a thing about fucking Ugandan orphans getting kidnapped. It's insane. Sorry.
I'd like to answer that question because, I mean, certainly 15 years at the magazine, I've done an awful lot of journalism and cover stories based around charities, working with charities. I've run Christmas campaigns at the Sunday Times magazine that have raised, 2, 3, 4 million pounds a year for charities. And I actually disagree that you need celebrity, because I think an awful lot of charities have amazing stories to tell. I have to say, generally the charities don't know how to tell those stories to editors. I can give you examples. A charity I heard about called Orbis. Anybody know about Orbis? They have a DC-10. They fly around the world. They've got an ophthalmic surgical team that give their time free, and they operate on people with eye problems that they can save. They have a theatre on board so that they can invite surgeons on board to view operations that would save sight. And they came to me and said, you could do something. Only if you can grab the journalist's attention, the editor's attention, and give and get their time to understand what you're doing, can you get a story out of it. My view has always been that ordinary people have extraordinary stories to tell, and they're much more interested in celebrity. Orbis, I put a journalist and a photographer on their plane. It landed in Cuba. 7,000 people turned up. They could only operate on 30 or 40. There was a little girl aged 14 who was blind, had been blind since she was 6 months old. She turned up and queued. She was seen. The surgeon said she can't be helped. As she got off the plane, my writer, who speaks Spanish, said to her, "What does it mean to you being blind?" She said, "It means to me that I'll never have a husband. I'll always be used by men." That grabbed him. He went back in and he argued and he argued with the surgical team and said, "Try." So they tried. And 2 weeks later, they operated on one eye. And 2 weeks later, the girl's name was Julia. And my writer Tim was there with her in Cuba. And they took off the bandages and she could see. And she looked at a flower for the first time. That was a cover story for me, the story of Julia's eye. And that sold the charity. At the same time, 18 months ago, I ran the pictures of Angelina Jolie in Darfur. I ran them because I'd run half a dozen stories about Darfur over the past 10 years. And in fact, the Sunday Times magazine was the first newspaper in the world to actually report on Darfur. But I did it because Darfur, people need to be reminded. People get jaded, they get fatigue, issue fatigue. And I thought Angelina Jolie in Darfur, as much as I hate celebrity charity sort of journalism, was a legitimate photo essay to run. So I do think that you can sell your stories into the press and the media, but I think it requires you to think outside the box and to audit the story you have to tell.
Sorry.
Editors are jaded, often impossible to get to, as are their staff and their features editors and everything else.
I'm from ActionAid as well, and I used to be I don't know if this is working either.
I can hear you.
I work in the press team, but I used to edit teenage magazines, but I've gone over to the other side. And I find it's incredible that we have all these amazing stories, and I've commissioned hundreds of real life stories, and I've seen how, as celebrities grown, so has the hunger for the more gritty, the more outrageous stories. And yeah, that's a fantastic story, Julia, although maybe all the other people that were there in Cuba needed it more than she did. I don't know, there's always those complications. But in the same way that, you know, celebrity stuff keeps going, getting the stakes get risen, so does it with real life. So I take your point, but, you know.
There's a lot of real life stories in magazines still, but it's always, I'm breastfeeding my 15-year-old son, or I squash men for a living.
Or a story that we got published, which was, what was it called? the puppies. Yeah, breastfeeding puppies. I mean, we were just like, oh my God, but it was, great.
I'm not saying you're not doing your job, and I recognise it's hard. I recognise it's harder and harder and harder for you to do your job. But what I'm saying is that there are still publications out there that if you've developed, and this is first and foremost, if you work for Mark Bukowski, you understand it. First and foremost, your relationship with an editor or a journalist, and using that first person contact.
And I think outside the box, and I'm an intelligent human being, and I know how stories, you know, I know the other side as well. But it's still, it's completely, like, it's over. It's game over. Unless you have a celebrity, you know, even if you have this amazing story, and I can tell you so many, and I've only been at Action for 10 months, I can tell you so many amazing stories that we have, but nobody gives a shit. There's no, like,
I think part of the problem as well is you get journalists, you do get journalists with a set idea of what they want. They'll put a request out to you, and we were talking about it today in the office, that they say, I want X, Y, and Z. And we went back to them with a story that had exactly X, Y, and Z, and they came back and went, yeah, it's not really right. And it's like, what can we do as in PR people to but no, we didn't even get to the picture stage. But it's kind of dealing with the problems you get between commissioners and editors as well.
Attractive God, I hope it wasn't the Sunday Times magazine.
Yeah, you don't want a heinous one. Yeah.
Who was?
What'd you say out of 10?
To give the other side though, as well, because I mean that is the case for a lot of situations that we do encounter. But the other side is that people are looking now, I think, like Jade, Goody, and other celebrities like Jordan, who we've dealt with through her link to autism now, that are more real and that, or maybe that's the wrong word, but that people feel they can relate to, and also that the real life stories that we put in, that like the celebrities who are people can relate to, and I think that's more as well. It's not just like getting up and up and up in the same way as coming down at the same time. That which celebrities are more like us, and we want to hear their stories and how their lives and how they're impacted by certain things. And I think that's one way for charities to get coverage by looking at celebrities that are affected, and that.
Well, I think they do actually, in my experience, don't they?
But also, one thing you could say about charities, and I won't be popular for saying this, is they tend to focus on the victim, and news is about news, and you can individualize it to, you know, the point of saturation. You know, we've all read, you know, gut-wrenching stories from the Congo, you know, but so long as charities continue to try and hash up, maybe believing it's what journalists want, a yet more agonizing story instead of looking at the big picture. I mean, I've just got back from the Congo, and I was one of the biggest charities there, was talking about, you know, was actually, you know, an enormous hospital that charged a huge amount of money privately, you know, but still chose to represent itself as a rape charity. Their solution, the biggest problem was that they treated 17,000 rape victims, and under their, you know, helping the prosecution effort, had prosecuted 30 rapists. So the problem is clearly not the victims, and yet it was always the victims they were pimping out. What was their solution to this? It was to get the rape victims to make aprons to sell to people like me. Raprons. Are you serious?
Raprons.
You know, we've got to remember that it's news.
You can ask a question.
My question is going to sound really horrid. Well, not just really pointless
Spice it up,
after
Tom.
yours. No. I don't work for a charity, so I'm the target audience here in a way. But I wondered, off the back of you saying you don't like to overuse celebrities, why I think it was a couple of weekends ago, the Sunday Times used celebrities to endorse recipes. I think it was Daisy de Villeneuve. I don't know who she is. I presume she's a celebrity.
Was it? Well,
some kind of poof pastry.
all I can say is the Sunday Times magazine has gone downhill since I left last July.
Left, right. Well, there are a number of them, and it just really made me mad. I thought it makes it easier for me to give to charities if there are celebrities involved. That's just it. But if there's a supplement trying to sell me recipes from
I agree entirely, but it depends what the supplement is. Is the supplement a lifestyle? You know, Nigella's on the cover and selling recipes, or is it a general interest journalism supplement? Or, I mean, what is its market? What is its niche? Who is it trying to appeal to? No.
Hello. Can you?
It's not worked all evening.
Mine it.
I'm interested in asking Sam. How do you measure success in terms of? I mean, I appreciate you've only been in your role for 6 months. It's not a personal question. It's more to do with how do you rate the success of your journalism?
Oh, sorry.
how do you rate the success of celebrity journalism? And if it's figures, if it's sales, doesn't that make it a seedy kind of journalism?
Well, obviously, you know, sales is a big part of it. But my personal interest, you know, probably not that of my bosses ultimately, but the personal interest is to sort of deliver, you know, a magazine that can sell, but not by any means necessary. You know, what there is in terms of celebrity journalism across broadcast, digital and print at the moment, is that, you know, obviously you're surrounded by it, it's completely unavoidable. There is a plethora of the stuff. When Heat launched 10 years ago, it was almost like the only show in town. So the imperative now for Heat is, yes, to sell, but also to have a very, very clear identity, you know, and a very clear take on the celebrity world that's unique and completely different to the others, which is increasingly difficult because it's everywhere. You can't walk down the street, even if you hate it, which most people do here. It must be awful because you cannot avoid it, even if you choose to. So it's very, very, very difficult to do that, and that really is the thing that I am trying to do, and to do that, but also to sell. I'm not going to pretend it's not to sell, but I know that there are certain techniques that that we could be employing that would perhaps be a more direct route to short-term sales that we don't.
Do you think it is seedy journalism?
Do I think it's seedy journalism? Not really. I don't see it as any. I've worked in numerous different forms of journalism across all mediums over the last sort of 14 years, and I don't really see it as any different at all. I see it as telling stories. You know, it's telling stories like I've told stories in every other sort of area of journalism.
If I could ask a question in Romy's absence, really for all the panellists, I'd be interested to know if you might agree with me, if the media is a stock market, that the term celebrity is a very devalued currency, and that what it actually means, who knows anymore? It seems that in the past 10 years we're almost dominated by the word, and it's not just Heat magazine that's a specialist publication. It's the BBC, it's the Channel 4, it's the posh papers. It's absolutely everywhere. Is this going to come to an end, and is that a worry for people that report on it, or is it on the rise?
No, I don't think it's a devalued word. If I was going to buy shares in a word now, celebrity is probably what I would buy shares in. That's an old-fashioned view of what celebrity is. I think celebrity used to mean you're celebrated for some kind of talent, and therefore the fame that you have is a byproduct of that. Celebrity now means you are famous for being famous, essentially. You can be famous from a TV show, for being in magazines, for having a talent, but you have to be willing to sell aspects of your life. That is celebrity now, I think. And therefore, the people who actually have a lot of talents, proper film stars, Oscar winners, really big music artists and that, are not what you would call the same as other celebrities. They don't sell aspects of life. You don't find them in celebrity magazines. You don't find them being talked about in the same way. They can do their work and then walk away from it. They're not having to be show ponies anymore. But I think what we have now when we say celebrities are people who are happy to be famous. And that's still growing. I mean, I don't think it's going to grow much. The exponential growth is coming to an end, but it's still growing because people growing up now, they're living their life much more externally. Twitter, Facebook, camera phones, you're kind of putting all your information out there to your friends at all times. Celebrities now are just bigger versions of that, and therefore I think that's just going to get more and more as time goes on.
I think as well, when you're talking about celebrities in the market, you're talking about consumers as well, and I think it's not just how celebrities are kind of changing, I think it's as well how consumers are changing. And in fact, there is still an appetite, but maybe they're being a bit more intelligent about what they want, so they, you know, they don't want to know about what somebody's wearing all the time. They do maybe want to know what they are interested in and why they're going to Darfur or whatever. So I think it's about being a bit more intelligent rather than being completely different.
It's interesting. We, you know, I sort of meet a number of different reasons. We have a wide age group of people who read Heat, from like going from kind of late teens right into sort of late 30s. And when you speak to the older ones, there's more of an appetite for the kind of bitchy kind of journalism, the bitchy coverage that I've tried to steer away from, you know, gradually, and because I know that the younger ones don't like that at all. They want celebrities to look kind of more glamorous, and the reason is that they aspire to be like them, and they also feel that they relate to the younger celebrities. And one of the things is that I've noticed from talking to them is that, you know, they genuinely say, a lot of them is, oh yeah, because I'd like to be there. That's what I'm intending to be, is like Beyonce, right? Or I'm going to, or they go, yeah, I will probably be a famous person. And I think that's a really mad thing to say. But that's because, you know, when I was at school, if the careers officer said what you mean, and go, I'm going to be a celebrity, you might as well have just said, I'll probably travel through time for a living, I should imagine. Probably invent a time machine. But now it's a realistic and plausible thing for them to say. They already feel like a mini celebrity if they've got more followers on Twitter than anyone else in their class. And to be fair to them, they do have an exceedingly more realistic chance of becoming some form of celebrity. So you can't even laugh at them. And that's why the younger people don't actually like too much cruelty or anything. They're interested in the gossip. You know, they want real gossip. They don't just want a sanitised portrayal of the celebrities. But there is a huge difference in the way that our older readers and our younger readers perceive celebrities. It's quite interesting, I think.
I remember also the fragmentation of the media and the fact that, you know, 20, 30 years ago you had 4 channels and now you've got 500 channels. Means there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of broadcasting that needs to be filled. And famous people are expensive to hire. Hence you end up with a program I discovered, channel hopping on Channel 4 the other night, something about people with really disgusting bodies and diseases, and I was absolutely gripped by it, actually. But everybody on that program has suddenly become a celebrity, and they've got their fame. They were in an hour-long documentary that's repeated week after week. And, you know, the amazing thing is that I discovered the TV cameras had followed them with their disgusting, you know, horrible diseases in Newcastle mainly for some reason, for 2 years. So there was the overweight lady with the prolapse, you know, and there was the beautiful young woman who had keratinosis or something that meant she couldn't help it. She smelled a fish, and so on and so forth. I mean, they're the new notorious people, and who would expose themselves to a television documentary being watched by 2 or 3 million people and go on that program? Why?
That actually raises a really issue that you probably think it's weird that I'm commenting on, but we were actually approached by the program because somebody in the senior part of the program has a link to autism, and they did a piece on autism, and obviously we were panicking about getting involved. But it was an amazing piece, and it had an amazing reaction, and a lot of people started to say, oh, I saw that, and then they realised they were about to say embarrassing bodies, and admit they've been watching it. But so many people said about it. But that brings back the issue as well in terms of what editors want. You know, they came to us because they had a link and they wanted to discover it. We can broach some editors, and they'll never give us access, whereas another one might just go, hold on, I've got a grandson with autism, and then give us priority over anything else. So I think in terms of charities working with editors as well, that is a big issue they have to deal with. Sorry, slightly.
But it was an interesting program in 2 ways. That on the one hand, it raises issues that people may be embarrassed about, and they may feel, oh, I'm not alone in this, and there is a public information element to it, in that Channel 4 will refer people to people who might be able to give them help and support groups and everything else. But at the end of the day, let's face it, I mean, it's there because they're hoping to put the appeal to the lowest common denominator of viewer, is my view.
I'm unconvinced this is all going to die down, because I think the thing I've been thinking about is the whole reality television and the aspirational nature of the X Factor and Big Brother and this stuff. And the problem is that as people want to do it more, they're more interested in doing it, and it's cheaper television to make, and it's easy journalism. So I don't think, sadly, I don't think it's going to die down. I think it's just going to keep going and going and going.
We're on the verge of another explosion.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to increase dramatically. I mean, people are, ordinary people who want to be famous, they're on Twitter and they're on Facebook. Tomorrow, they'll be building very cheaply their own iApps and iPad apps and putting them on the market to buy, doing something extraordinary or outrageous. YouTube is almost finished. I mean, because the opportunity for somebody, anybody, right, to make themselves famous for 5 minutes and then sell it is going to be the next revolution. Is what I believe in terms of celebrity. And I think actually the Hollywood and the agents in Hollywood are actually rather worried about the fact that ordinary people are becoming famous and stealing their thunder. And they don't have agents.
We have to try harder. Camilla had an awesome idea, didn't you? Celebrity Sharia Court. See, and that keeps us going for weeks. Brilliant.
Hi, just a small point on this whole aspect that young people are aspiring to be celebrities, be, music stars or people who do nothing. It seems that more and more people are aspiring to add absolutely nothing to society. And if there's going to be, a massive explosion or revolution of people aspiring more and more to do less for society, it seems quite a bad thing.
Isn't it? Yeah. I don't think it's celebrity. I think they're just aspiring to be notorious.
I don't know. I think if over the past few years, if your options were single mother, work in a shop, do nothing, be unemployed, that's your life, and you have an option of going on TV and maybe somebody saying, you've got a nice voice or you look pretty, I'd take that over the first one every time. And kids are. You might say that going on the X Factor and not getting much out of it other than sort of 4 gigs at Butlins is rubbish, but
is it an option?
It's
on
actually
a mass scale though. I mean, it's one person every year gets.
It's probably a few hundred. Over the course of channels, it's probably a couple of thousand people per year.
No, it's giving people hope.
But this is brilliant. Yeah,
Direction or well, maybe. I mean, a great example is Jordan. I mean, I once said to my daughter, she's 24-year-old university graduate, not unintelligent, I mean, actually knowledgeable, and she regarded Jordan as a hero for her age group. In that here was somebody who simply inflated her breasts, right? And must be a good businesswoman because she applied herself and marketed herself very well and made £6 million. I mean, she has something. She's created a business around her brand.
That's what you measure success.
And you know very well there's going to be an hour-long documentary next year when she decides to have them reduced. She'll sell that book. But my daughter's generation's attitude is good for her. She's created something.
It ties in really to what I was just saying as well, is that they, I've met, girls who've become, like WAGs models, and they're like, well, I was in Hull and I'd left, that's where I grew up, and I was going to go and work in this fish factory, I think, and basically my mate told me that there was a guy in Manchester and he'd do a breast enlargement for £3,000. So I, got a loan and borrowed some money, and I went and got £3,000. Then I got a spray tan. Then I went to London and slept on a friend's floor while I got some casting sessions. Then I got a couple of sort of small jobs in magazines, in sort of men's mags, And then I ended up getting invited to a couple of events, and then I met a footballer, and then I went out with a footballer who was like a multi-millionaire for about a month, and then it fizzled out, and then the work dried up. And then I went home again and took the job in the factory anyway. But I'd always had that month, And it was just like, but there was a lot of girls like her who just see it as a sort of, suddenly, it is a viable option. That is a viable option for your career to go and kind of live that life,
And it covered the terrible smell of fish. So.
It did, yeah.
And maybe in terms of the charity thing, that's not a bad thing. I mean, we might immediately, on the face of it, lament the fact that, a double D, breast implants can bring you millions and make you notorious. But then what if, Jordan then starts her own charity for brain-damaged children. She has a brain-damaged children and lends that and starts that charity and puts money into that charity, and because of her notoriety, attracts money to that charity that is then invested in the research. And what I'm saying is it can be a cyclical thing. Audrey Hepburn became a UNICEF ambassador, largely, you know, campaigning against famine, because she spent many years of her youth, you know, not only, first of all, undernourished, and so is it necessarily a bad thing that somebody like Jordan can make a lot of money and then use that fame to publicise an issue? Because for me, as a journalist, or retired journalist, the issue was never, I'm not there to publicise a charity and raise money for you. That's not my job. My job is to highlight issues, I hope.
And also charities are at the end of the day, you know, companies, you may be non-profits, but at the end of the day you provide jobs for the people who work for the charities, and you don't automatically, one doesn't automatically have to give them airtime, because, you know, we're giving airtime to the news, not the charities themselves. But, you know, if celebrity culture carries on growing, and as Robin predicts, a massive explosion, we could maybe end up with an ideal world of just people who do nothing and charities. You know, to do-gooders do nothing and just, you know, throw a newspaper in the middle.
You'll probably be the first person to admit that there's an awful lot of charities out there, because of charity law and the Charity Commission, sitting on vast amounts of money they can't spend. There are classic examples, precisely. I mean, charity is a whole new issue. That's, well, you raised charity. I'm just simply saying there's a bigger...
Celebrities are vile, their publicists are more vile, and their lawyers are worse.
But it was interesting actually saying that. It's interesting to look at the X Factor thing this Christmas with Rage Against the Machine and Facebook and that whole campaign, and how that people are rebelling against X Factor a bit as well.
And one can rebel against Simon Cowell, and whether you love him or hate him. I mean, is it sung for Haiti? I mean, how much did it raise for Haiti? If these people... I mean, Band-Aid is a classic example.
I just got, like, going to lighten it up a little bit, if that's okay.
Oh, don't do that.
I don't think it's working.
It is, just
yeah, when I came out of uni, which was many, many years ago, Popbitch came out, and I loved the bitchy behind the closed doors kind of thing about it. And to be honest, I don't read it anymore. I'm much more addicted to Perez Hilton and the Mail Online. And we were just talking to my friends here earlier, saying that, you know, this bitchy tone that I'm very interested in, like, how much of it's associated with the Britishness. Why the British? Do you think Popbitch could have existed in America? And, you know, like I said, we now got Perez Hilton, but I think my question is, like, the Daily Mail Online is the biggest read website, I believe, now in the UK. And the stories, like, about Kate Winslet and, well, I don't know if you want to differ, but the stories about Kate Winslet, and it's like women, some women we like, some women we don't, but I just think the tone is just getting uber bitchy now, and I'm interested that you're saying the younger generations are not really into it. I'm just curious, like, about, I suppose there's quite a tangled thoughts there about the nature of the British and celebrity, and I see it's happening now in America with Perez Hilton, but kind of like, where's it going in terms of, like, how bitchy do the editors allow it to get about women, particularly?
Couldn't get anywhere near as bitchy as the Mail, so that's probably why you're reading that and not me. But I think
you've got to separate the Mail out. It's the Daily Hate Mail.
The Mail's headline was, why can't Kate Winslet make any of her marriages work? That was actually the headline, which I thought was...
so bitchy, but I read it.
But part of the fun as well with the Daily Mail website is actually going on there to see the comments that people are really making and taking it so seriously. Maybe that.
And it's another issue. Why is the most misogynist newspaper in Britain read mainly by women?
I think the British like to take people down a peg or two more than anywhere else. And that might be changing. As our culture has become more American, as Sam said, that might be changing as people are getting younger, they're more aspirational. Who do they think they are has been, I think, the most, it's something that sums up a British attitude. Things like, there's a lot of new websites, things the Mail, who've taken things in order to create a niche, just, you know, misogynist and nasty. They're generally read by women, but that's what they are. And, you know, oh, look at her, what does she look like? And, oh my God, as you said, Kate Winslet. Why are you so horrible, is essentially what the subtext is. I don't know why people read it. I've no idea. I think sort of Britishness is more sardonic, it's more sarcasm, it's more, it's probably from a tradition of things like Private Eye, Monty Python, basically not quite wanting to take the piss out of establishment of some kind, and celebrity became the establishment. But I think America's doing that as well now.
I think Americans expect perfection from celebrities, and Brits really like celebrities. Jade's a good example, as who are somehow imperfect. And in America, you will get more bitchiness about a celebrity who, for instance, has gained a lot of weight or something like that, because they think that's just an outrage, that's just disgusts us, because, you know, we live in a society that's all about perfection, whereas I think in Britain we still kind of are very suspicious of perfection, find it terribly American and strange. It's changed, yeah, I mean, you know, it did start out as an entertainment magazine aimed at men, actually, for its first year, and it flopped. That's the story of Heat. It had 1 year where it was like a month away from closure, and the editor at the time had the idea of turning it into a celebrity weekly, because that was the only element of the magazine that seemed popular. So he gave the whole magazine over to it, and it was an overnight success. And it started to do the kind of, this is what celebrities are really like. You know, this is, don't worry, they're not perfect, they're just like you and me. Look, she's got spots, look, she's picking up dog dirt. That was basically the sentiment of it. And people were so used to a sanitised depiction of celebrities back then that it was absolutely revelatory, you know. And then, well, I think it did go through a period of being quite bitchy about things like body image and stuff, and we've moved away from that now. But I think the stuff that our readers feel is fair game is exactly what Camilla says. The time you get stuck into them is when they get too big for their boots and they say things that are in some way pretentious or just that, you know, seem to be getting above yourself. In America, I think it's different. I think they're much more into, I mean, Perez Hilton's bitchy, right? I mean, that's as bitchy as you can get, isn't it?
Half bitchy and half gushing. If you
Right.
knows them, it's like
Yeah.
best friends.
I think that actually there's a very British reason here. You use the word bitchiness, and I actually think that the British are generally more questioning of a supposed elite or people in authority. And I suspect that if one investigated it, one would find that it's the evolution of the 20th century generations. From the First World War, when they marched off at the age of 16 to war and over the top of the trenches, and 60,000 men died, boys died on the Somme in a day because somebody gave an order, that what you've seen is the gradual emancipation of the classes. So they don't actually respect an elite, and they don't actually respect people, and they are prepared to pull them down rather than just doff their cap.
I'm not sure that it's because they don't respect an elite. I think it's because they think they can be the elite. And I think I work in children's media, and I think it's quite refreshing tonight to hear that they're a little less bitchy, and I agree with you. And I'd also say that Heat readers start an awful lot younger. And I love it, so that's fine. But what I think is quite interesting is actually I think the culture of reality TV has meant that we're in a position now where young people, it is for them an option to become famous, and it's quite a tangible option with Britain's Got Talent. And I just wondered whether or not you think that if there's going to be an influx of kind of self-made or kind of TV reality-made celebrities coming forward, whether or not we're going to be able to continue to keep them alive for as long as we have been. So the likes of Joe McElderry, for instance, who came out of X Factor, and I think the last series of X Factor was a triumph in terms of shared moment television. But you know, he's not really around anymore, and actually he's the most short-lived kind of X Factor star that there's been. And I just wonder whether or not we're going to start getting fatigue very, very quickly, and how you imagine that the press and the media are going to continue to make sure that, for instance, I think Simon Cowell will be a bit annoyed that Joe McElderry's kind of already waned a little bit, and how you see the press's role in that in keeping them going.
I don't think Simon Cowell cares.
I think you've got to
I
be
think he's got
wary
another
as well.
one along in a moment.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think Joe's gone yet. He's not released
No,
an
he hasn't
album
released
or
it.
anything.
Tends to time it, don't they?
Remember,
So it
they did
comes
the
out
same
just
thing with
before
Leona.
next
They
year's
took her
film.
out of the loop for over a year.
I don't know if he's
while
going
they
to be
developed
big,
and
'cause
worked with her.
Yeah, Alexandra Burt just seemingly disappeared, and then just before X Factor came back, so I don't think we've seen the end of him. But I do think that they kind of accept, just like, you know, now that he's taking acts from his reality show, before that, record executives were taking just as many chances, and some would work out and some wouldn't. And, you know, actually on the X Factor over the series, we've gone, you know, 2 or 3 years of the winner being a complete car crash and disappearing, and then suddenly you get someone like Leona Lewis who went absolutely, you know, nuclear.
But the losers are touring. Probably were earning peanuts of £250, £300 a week doing tours. owned by Psycho Productions, which makes great money out of the losers.
The biggest success was a band who came second, which is JLS.
And the interesting thing is, as access to media gets bigger, and Robin, you were saying people can go on things like YouTube and become, if possibly, an instant star. It seems like the filters and mediators are getting narrower. I mean, X Factor had the biggest audience figures of any show for a long time. It takes a mass media, mass media to actually filter out everything else and turn somebody into a star. This kind of, I'm a star on YouTube, I don't think there's ever been any. I absolutely disagree. There's never been a MySpace star. There's never been a YouTube star.
Not yet.
Not really. Not a mainstream star. It takes mainstream media still to turn somebody from the internet into star. You're not a star now until you've been on television, I think.
I think what's interesting is the dynamic of AdSense, Google AdSense, and things like YouTube, where you can post a video on YouTube and get 40 million hits. And through Google AdSense and the way that works, YouTube is making an awful lot of money. The people who are posting that and getting the 40 million hits should be getting a piece of action. Up to 12 pence a hit is what they pay certain people, certain media. I was talking to somebody last week. I mean, lastminute.com makes 17 million a year out of their exit revenue, from exit revenue. People just clicking the back button. So the time is going to come. I think there's a democratization of the internet, the apps market, and the iApps market is going to open a whole new market to people as they go to university, do media studies courses, computer technology courses, and discover that YouTube, MySpace, and the others are making a lot of money at the stuff they're posting for fun. There'll come a moment when that fun will become, people will start to look to make money.
I think as well, there's a lot of this thing about what's the next big thing, and like in the olden days, you had like record companies would take time to build a brand around somebody, and with X Factor, that's not happening anymore. It's just if you have a hit and it doesn't make #1, then you get dropped.
Yeah.
I think as well, when we haven't mentioned Susan Boyle, who is know Joe Public, suddenly gets found from nowhere with this amazing talent, goes catastrophic, takes over America. But yeah, this is a woman with learning difficulties, and how much is she being exploited by the corporation that is Simon Cowell, and how much is she actually being built up as a brand that maybe she can't deliver on? And so it's actually maybe what responsibility the media have, rather than just like dropping it and going to the next big thing.
You think it's like a Victorian freak show?
I think responsibility of the media are two things that don't really go cap in hand anymore. But remember the apps market and the launch of the iPad and what's been driven here. It's by 2011 that will be $17 billion a year business. Apps are already exceeding music downloads now in business.
What about when Joe Public rebel and they do stuff like Rage Against the Machine getting to #1?
Isn't it great?
Isn't it time for all of us to rebel against this celebrity?
Who's stopping you?
I'm doing stuff. What are you doing?
Oh, I've been rebelling all my life. I've been rebelling. What, do you want an answer? I've been rebelling all my life for 40 years. A lot longer than you have.
2 points?
Journalistically.
2 points. It seems to me that you're suggesting that it's the celebrity obsession is editor-driven rather than consumer-driven. It's the choice that editors are making to deem celebrities newsworthy when they're receiving contributions from freelancers and charity organisations and publicists and so on. The other point I wish to raise, which seems to be the relevant point, is the impact that the celebrity obsession is having on our culture and on us as a humanity, and the role that the media has complicit in that. Is it not just a distraction and escapism from real news?
Yes and no.
It's as communities are fracturing and we don't see families, we don't spend time with them, we don't even know the people down the street. Celebrities are the sort of currency which we can talk to each other with. When we used to live in small communities, you'd know what was going on, and so down the road, didn't they do that, didn't this kind of thing. Now somebody from the television provides that role, and therefore it's possibly the glue that holds us as a community together.
Also, it's the idea that any of it was news anyway. When I was working for the women's mags in Hollywood, I mean, at one point I got so bored during an interview, I just completely tranced out. I had no idea what had been said, no idea what. Luckily, I was recording this thing, and it was this bloke off Desperate Housewives. And as I came out of there, I just felt so filthy I decided I'd have to jog home to feel better as a human being. Started running, dropped my iPod that I'd recorded it on down off of Beechwood Canyon, wiped the whole thing. What am I going to do? I can't sit through that again. I went home, I made the whole thing up. I made who he fancied, how much he cared about his co-stars, you know, his dreams, his hopes, his aspiration. Did he care? Did he notice? Nobody noticed. The magazine didn't notice. They said it was one of the most accurate pieces ever written about him because the opening line that I wrote was, he's even better looking in real life. Utter fabrication.
I'd like to ask you a question. I mean, do you know how much of a science and how much money the media spends on finding out what people want to read about? I mean, you know, almost every. Sorry. No, but it's really what I'm just telling you what the you know, the trade secrets of the media are. I mean, for instance, you talk about hundreds of thousands spent every year by, say, a national newspaper on market research, but it's not just every now and then with focus groups, and it's a daily occurrence where they have panels of readers and non-readers. That they're paying them to give them their opinions on who they want to read about. It's why Google, if you go on Google, you can find out every hour who is the most Googled name in the world, or by your region, UK or Europe, for instance. This sort of information is driving the media to service what people are interested in. So if they discover that Cheryl Cole is the most Googled personality at 6 o'clock, an hour before they go to press and start printing their first editions, you can guarantee they'll be hitting, the tabloids I'm talking about, you can guarantee they'll be hitting the paparazzi agencies saying, have you got a picture of Cheryl Cole coming out of a restaurant? And they will probably invent a story to go with it, or at least a caption. But there's an enormous amount of money being spent on market research. And I'm not talking about the media in Britain alone, I'm talking worldwide. Particularly
is that not an admission that you're feeding off yourself?
Sorry?
Is that not an admission that you're feeding off your own?
No, so I didn't do it.
You created. No, but speaking of
the media in general, the media that relies on celebrity to sell itself, it spends a vast amount of money in that area.
Well, that may well be so, but I don't think that's a defence to the.
I'm not defending it.
To the question, or an answer to the question that was put. One of the aspects of tonight that I picked up tonight is what a depressing scenario we've all painted of the younger generation that's emerging from a range of ages. A number of key words that should be part of any young person's education have not been mentioned tonight, like ethics, or hard work, or virtue, or any of the other qualities that most of us here subscribe to. And the question I got for the panel is, to what extent do you regard the media as having a responsibility to the readership that you attract to buy or read your titles, in terms of how they see the world and how you are creating a world that they're going to become a part of?
I think I remember the same argument in the 60s when I was growing up, and my parents were very despondent about my generation. I think every generation, as it ages or matures or becomes more curmudgeonly, looks upon the youth. I think you know, I've got 3 kids aged 22 to 26. I'm very proud of them and their values, even though they love Twitter, even though they love X Factor, even though they're fascinated by Cheryl Cole or Jordan. They're all major contributors to society. I don't see anything wrong with the fact that they get some form of entertainment or interest or enjoyment. I think it's that's just part of their makeup. It doesn't mean to say that they're not providers, that they're not influencers, that they're not workers, that they're not tax contributors, just because they get off on watching a reality TV show or posting themselves on Twitter or YouTube. I just think they're getting engaged on multiple levels that we never did.
Well, sorry, I also think that you have the money to educate them in those other areas. What about the people that you sell your stories to, your magazines, your son, to, that don't have parents who can supply them with that other side of it? Do you not feel responsible for that?
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry, I'm confused by your question.
You were saying that your children have grown up sort of
None of them went to private school, if that's what you're saying. They all went to state schools.
No, but you're there.
Yeah.
And
well, actually, I wasn't. That was a big complaint.
Oh, right. Well, then, yeah, I'm interested in your personal lives too, considering that you're interested
But I mean, the point you're making is that
is that you just seem to be absolving yourself of all responsibility, and that's
How?
what I'm intrigued at.
Absolving myself responsibility as a journalist, you mean?
Yeah, in your profession.
What am I responsible for in my profession? Are you asking me to defend me or my profession?
No, I suppose I'm just
I can't defend my profession. I think a lot of what my profession does is indefensible.
I haven't answered the last three questions. We have 7 minutes. So I just change the subject again. Getting back to business of celebrities adopting issues. I spend quite a lot of my time hanging out in Africa. Can everyone hear? Yeah. I spend quite a lot of my time hanging out in Africa. And Africa's the place that celebrities, celebrity vanity, tourism, adopt. One of the curious factors is the only celebrities many Africans have heard of are European footballers.
David Beckham.
None of them have heard. David, well, lots of Europeans, and the African thing.
Yeah.
None of them have heard of Bob Geldof, as they have. They regard him as something of derision and contempt. And it's interesting how when celebrities get involved with African issues, I suspect it's the same in most of the developing world, very often they're being given the issue by their publicist, their lawyer, whoever it might be, sees this would be a cool one for you to do, George. And then these bastards go off to Africa and they do a wonderful job of distorting, trivializing, and patronizing the people they're involved with, and they distort the issues. And usually end up, in my view, I think Bob Geldof's done more harm to Africa, and usually end up doing more harm than good. I'm curious what your view is.
I think there are some issues where that is definitely the case, but I think as well a lot of celebrities are moving a bit away from that a bit. I mean, yes, there will be some that attach onto an issue because it's current, but I think they're quite easy to sniff out nowadays, really. I think if you're looking at people who want to kind of give long-term support to an issue, they can't get away with that. They have to get thoroughly and deeply involved in something, and I think that's what agents and celebrities are doing. When you get celebrities that will say, I'll support you for 2 years, and in that time, any requests that come to me, I'll be turned down, I'll only support you. And you know that for that time you've got that celebrity, but actually is it better to try and build up a long-term relationship over 20 or 30 years? Our president, Jane Bussman, has worked with us for 25 years, coming on 30 years. And so it's more about the kind of getting people in for longevity rather than the quick hits. I think certainly as a charity, that's where we're sort of moving towards.
I think you made a really interesting point, but first of all, I think you can't tar all celebrities with the same brush. I mean, some actually do good work. Jane's been doing it for 25 years, and that's commitment.
She keeps away from Africa.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the only bit. It's soccer. Soccer's what they recognise, and I think I might agree with you about Bob Geldof. An awful lot of people might disagree with you, but personally, I would agree with you. But at the same time, there are celebrities who do good things in Africa. But I know. Sorry. Okay.
Well, if you look at, you could take the example of Band-Aid in Africa, and you could say that they managed to fudge the issue of war and make it all about famine and this terrible accident that had led to these poor people being, victims yet again. You could look at the fact that any time there's a really ugly war, it automatically seems to be rebranded as an act of God. You could look at the case of Uganda, where millions of people trot out there to try and end this terrible situation of this monster bogeyman Joseph Kony, who's managed to chase 1.6 million people at one point into camps. And no one wants to look at the fact that the government was making a huge amount of money out of perpetuating the situation. And if we'd made it, a less sort of, everyone flood to, look at celebrity-backed campaigns to try and help this, we might have taken a deeper look at the issues. For example, if you look at, so I was just going to say, the World Food Programme operating in Uganda, will have endless, campaigns to try and raise more money for, to feed these people without, without ever once properly looking at the reasons why they're there in the first place. And I think that's what hit-and-run, celebrity-led journalism does.
Well, I've never sent a celebrity to Africa. I've never sent a journalist with a celebrity to Africa. I've sent writers and reporters to Africa, and people I hope are experienced. John Swain's or this world. What I was trying to say earlier was that I don't devalue Angelina Jolie going to Darfur with a photojournalist who I admire, who produces some excellent pictures, if I feel that Darfur, that's been in the news for 12 years now, right, if people are getting jaded and forgetting it, then if that brings it to the consciousness of some people who don't know about it, and you do, then is that necessarily a bad thing?
Robin, sorry, I mean, you've been dancing around.
Don't dance.
Well, anyway, or dab dancing around. One word that hasn't really quite been mentioned, it's been, well, not properly mentioned anyway, but ultimately, and I'd like to find out what Sam, Jane, Camilla, and Sarah think about this, just them, that we don't actually care about people. We don't actually care about the celebrities. We don't actually care about all of the little living organisms there, but we only care about the money that's actually being produced through the celebrity, the press, the media, the perpetuation of well, fundraising, etc. Is that the case? Is it really we just don't care about people? We just care about the money?
You mean in terms of people, if they are giving money, they want to know where it's going?
Well, no, I mean, basically all of this. A lot of noise that's going on here, but what's the whole point of this? The sort of celebrity culture, the whole point of teaming up with brands and teaming up with PR people and teaming up with charities, the whole, or even teaming up with companies. The whole point is just to make money, and you don't actually care about
making money. It seems to be that something where celebrities do make a difference is it increases media coverage. But does that do anything?
But that
so
makes money.
We're all obsessed with how much coverage you can get for something in the media. But is that an end in itself, or is that supposed to get somewhere else? And
but does that that coverage obviously makes money, because that coverage means
it makes money
hit rates, and
possibly for the newspapers. But does it do any good for the cause? I don't know.
I don't think it does do any good for the cause, but it's.
But beyond the profile, does it achieve the ends you want to achieve?
I was going to say, a second. Would you say from your audience's perspective, the people that you write to, that there is an illusion of choice? There is like an endless amount of media that they can consume, whether that's iPad apps, of which, as you say, there are going to be tens of thousands of them, whether it's which brand of beans they're going to buy in Tesco's at the weekend, or whether it's the all the newspapers that they can choose from. Would you not say that people actually respond most of all to endorsement? There isn't just an endless choice. They need to be driven towards something, and that is something that celebrities provide when they become the face of a brand or of a charity or even what X Factor does for music.
I can't trust a tomato unless Jamie Oliver tells me that tomato's safe.
I think it comes down to like the brand fit. I mean, if you just randomly have, you know, someone who's on Big Samantha in endorsing some sort of food project, then what value are they adding? Where's the fit with the brand? Whereas if Jamie Oliver's doing it, then you know there is a bit more kind of gravitas to it. So I think
gravitas. Jamie Oliver, gravitas.
But there's more of a feasible link, I think. So yeah, certainly in terms of charities, it's about, if you want to add value to something, it's about getting the right brand fit. Otherwise, there's not much point in putting all the effort in if it's not going to develop anything.
Quality journalism is like on TV. You get more hits on police chase shows than you do on quality shows. And in France, they nationalised one of the main TV shows, TV stations. You know, apparently, the drive was to make it a bit more like the BBC have really good shows that educate people. I mean, people aren't going to Google hit on you know animals and wildlife, but they make David Attenborough shows, and people watch them. They get educated, and a lot of people in Britain over the years, they've grown up with the BBC and. You know, I think it's a great thing, and there's a lot of quality journalism. You learn a lot from it just by being around it. And then people, I think a lot of the questions here tonight are saying, you know, do journalists have some responsibility to produce a reasonable quality of journalism, or are you just sacrificing for, you know, hits, you know, Google hits, or, you know?
And of course they have a responsibility to produce quality depending on the market they're servicing.
But you need to roll it all together. It's like if you're doing a car chase, that's what people like. You need to have Peter Andre chasing to a hospital to get his testicles tested. And then everybody's happy and educated. But
you know, you can't necessarily force feed an 18-year-old with the problems of Darfur. But it is I believe it's a journalist's responsibility to find a way of informing them. Absolutely.
I mean, speaking as a consumer, not as anything to do with journalism. there are so many different media out there nowadays than there were a few years ago. I think we touched on this earlier. So yes, journalists possibly have a responsibility, but what responsibility have they got to know every single consumer? You know, I might read Heat, but I also might read, you know, Time magazine, or you just because I kind of love reading trash doesn't mean that I'm not a very intelligent person. But how can you say that, you know, the editor of The Guardian has a responsibility to make sure I've got a rounded kind of ethical background when actually there's so much media for me to choose from? How is it their responsibility?
I mean, but it's interesting. Yeah. When I started in journalism, there were 28 million newspapers sold every day, national newspapers, and today it's 8 million. When I started in journalism, there were 3 TV channels, and now there are hundreds to choose from. Only 15 years ago, before Tim Berners-Lee thought up the World Wide Web, you were talking about probably still 20 to 22 million people, newspapers sold every day. And the average British household, and there was only about 15 million households in Britain, were actually taking 2 newspapers a day, the average British household. And now, they're just not only reading newspapers, and newspapers are in serious trouble and chasing a market and trying to appeal. And they are dumbing down massively. But in terms of quality, how much quality did we get 30 years ago from television compared to today? You could argue that we get a lot more now, but it's diversified across channels. We need to wrap it up. One more thing, I mean, Panorama, good investigative program, 20 years ago, 8 million viewers. Today, 200,000.
I'm just going to, before we finish, just completely go against that. 3 biggest magazine percentage up sales in the last year: The Week, Private Eye, The Economist. People want quality, they don't always get it. People can't always pay for quality journalism because it's difficult now. But I don't think it means that either people are dumbing down or that people are dumb. Would just be my thing.